Well, first, a moment of silence for Peter David, great writer and artist who recently passed away just hours and hours ago was official. So, one moment of silence before we begin the analysis of Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible. R.I.P. Peter. I will do something full blown on him. But let us proceed to the really incredible, like world historic. Yeah, the money's that much. This is now one of the best Memorial weekends since 2013. Now, there are some disappointing news here and there. Apparently, what Tom Cruise did with Mission Impossible is a career high for the Mission Impossible films. This is still far below his record breaking $1 billion with Maverick. However, this is still very respectable. So, apparently, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning will be set to make roughly $80 million, which doesn't sound like too much, but again, given how expensive these films are and given the decline of so many other film series that, even with reputable stars and a big brand name, don't really do anything, this is quite an achievement. But obviously, the real news here is Lilo and Stitch, the live action remake of the 2002 classic, which I have not seen. And I'm probably better off because a lot of people are really angry at this film. And just a cursory scan of how many critics were outraged they ruined, apparently, the 2002 version. And yeah, they don't matter. They don't matter. Apparently, the actual paying audience overwhelmingly is endorsing this film, and it is astonishing how big the box office is. And unlike others, I'm pretty honest. So I've not dived into the moronic, apocalyptic, oh, the cinema's dying in the box office, blah, 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 blah. Dozens of videos confidently saying the cinema is dead, theatricals dead, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, I know how to look at numbers. And if you actually do look at the numbers carefully, not much has really changed. An immense growth, an immense growth. So how do we explain the paradox of some theaters closing despite Lilo and Stitch, and yet so many poor films doing very badly last year? And again, I would only say there's one massive exception, like Furiosa, which I think was a very, very good film, but the box office was fairly disappointing. Well, I think we have to state the obvious that last year was jam packed, and I mean overwhelmed with just really, really bad films. In fact, even doing a top 10 list does not really suffice. We had The Crow, Borderlands, Madame Web. Remember that one? And one of my personal favorite bad films, Garfield, which is insane when you think about it. Like, well, yes,
Lilo and Stitch retains and often amplifies the most stirring aspects of the rightfully beloved animated film. The filmmakers understand that the innate joy and humor of the mischievous Stitch work just fine, and can still sell plenty of merch.
It did look like a very downward trend. So why is it going against the overall trend? Well, we got to state the obvious. If you put out a film that people want to see, like Deadpool Wolverine, you can say many things about the quality of that film, but that is a film many people wanted to see, and they were willing to pay money to see it. But these other films were, well, I mean, they had a fan base. Clearly, Lilo and Stitch has way more popularity than Snow White. It's also what you do with the actual brand itself. And again, I've not seen the film, but I got to be honest, the trailer was it was good. It was good. It was nothing jaw dropping. It was like, oh yeah, it looks pretty good. But I wasn't like, oh my god, this thing is going to be a massive, massive hit. It just looks what it looks like. It looks like a very above average trailer. Looks like above average film. But I'm going to wait to see it for myself. But it's actually interesting that Mission Impossible also has gotten fairly mixed critical reception. A lot of critics are like, well, it's okay to good, but it's nothing special.
Like, we have to set up the rules, let's make agreements so that we can get back to work. And then I was calling governments and getting agreements with them. And then I was sharing it with the other studios and my friends, saying this is how we're doing it. And then just kind of saying my crew's going to get paid during this time. I just kept everybody.
Crews to do death-defying stunts. You will see that. And presumably with Lilo and Stitch, if this is what you wanted a furry menace just traipsing all over the place and having fun. Now, granted, Star Wars is a massive, massive brand, obviously much bigger than Lilo and Stitch, but that did not stop Solo from collapsing and making very little money and clearly being a bit of a loss, not a major loss to Disney. So brand name can only go so far. It has to be word of mouth and that the fans themselves actually do like what you're putting out there. And many Garfield fans were apparently not impressed with that Garfield film. And definitely the Crow fandom did not embrace The Crow last year. So there are obvious reasons why a certain film will connect to its fan audience. But yeah, Lilo and Stitch is clearly connecting. And Mission Impossible, to a lesser degree. I mean, this is very impressive box office. But I would guesstimate that the Mission Impossible box office is not going to be a huge decline, but it's going to lose a lot of its audience. But I think Lilo and Stitch is going to retain a massive amount. Usually the rule is you only get half your audience the second weekend. I think Lilo and Stitch is going to do a little bit better. It clearly has a little bit more staying power than these other entries. I mean, really the only real shocker here has been Sinners, because again, Revenge of the Sith has had decades and decades to be re-examined, and the fan base is still active. But Sinners is a genuinely original film. It does have a few stars, but it is surprising how much it has had staying power these last couple of weekends.
Service and fandom is poison. It is deadly. It's great when applied like a very, very, very strong spice, very judiciously. If you happen to have seen the other movies, great. I don't count on it. The danger of that is I'm asking you to leave the narrative.
Actually going to theaters. Now, I myself would have to say this is not exactly up there to the last really jaw-dropping thing I had. I mean, I did go to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was packed. But I think this is more like Multiverse of Madness. Like when I went to see Multiverse of Madness, it was so jam-packed, I could not get original seating that I wanted. Say, okay, we have some tickets for the next hour. And even there, it's like, we only have 3 available. So I don't know if Lilo and Stitch is up there. I mean, this is not Infinity War, Endgame, or even Black Panther. However, it is getting a massive response. So we'll have to wait and see if these are just half theaters that are being sold, but still being sold consistently, or it is just the most hardcore fans this weekend, and the next weekend will be the more passive fans. And some people will go to see it, but some people will not. But these are projections. You have to be careful that we don't really have the final numbers, but they look really, really impressive. And no matter what the final accounting is, whether we're up or down a few million, these are really big numbers, really big numbers. Collectively, Sinners, Thunderbolts, and Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible are amazing show. Revenge of the Sith, this film, Mission Impossible, they're showing there are quite a few still film goers, but you have to put out the right kind of film and one that really resonates with its audience. And clearly, Lilo and Stitch is resonating. Whether it should, we'll have to wait and see. I'm definitely curious now to see the film. It's not like I wasn't going to see it, but I was like, yeah, I guess I'll catch up with it. But I'm like, oh, wow, this is really doing very well. So I will be curious because it is getting very chilly reception from a lot of hardcore fans, but they are not representative. Apparently, a lot of hardcore fans are very pleased, and they're going to see this once and twice this weekend and maybe beyond. And there we are with the record-breaking box office these last couple of days.
I loved it.
Okay.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. All right.
8.5 out of 10.
Shaking hands, meeting staff members at theaters, and intensely eating popcorn. It really makes you want to root for this guy. Hell, I am rooting for Tom Cruise.